How's that? Excellent. Okay. Again, my name is Rick Ledwith. I'm our town manager, and very pleased to welcome our residents who are joining us this evening. Also want to welcome our residents who will be watching from home, and thanks to WHCI TV, you'll have the opportunity to watch this online at any time as well. Also want to thank our media partners as well for joining us this evening for a very important conversation. With us this afternoon, we also have members of our town council. We have Councilor Deb Poland, who was just over here to the left a moment ago. There she is. Thank you, Deb. We have our town clerk, Leon Davidoff, here. We have many of our staff here as well. So we have our police chief, assistant chief in the back, captain, sergeant from our police department. We have a member of our community engagement team, public relations team, and of course we have our community development team with our engineers. We also have members of our Vision Zero Advisory Committee with us this evening as well. So, and this is the first of 2 public information meetings that we will be holding about our speed management camera program. And as you may know, we adopted, our town council adopted a Vision Zero action plan back in 2024. And that plan, as you know, is our guide to getting us to 0 deaths and 0 serious injuries as a result of traffic crashes. And our goal with the action plan is by 2033. But it's imperative, I think, to us as a town council, as administration, and to our community to get there sooner than that. And we've been working very hard over the last 2 years on various projects around town that many of you, I hope, have seen, especially over the last 4 or 5 weeks, to get us to Vision Zero, get us to where our roads are safe. Safe for our pedestrians, safe for our bicyclists, safe for our children, safe for our drivers to travel through town. Part of that will be done through enforcement. But enforcement is just a part of what we're trying to accomplish with Vision Zero. And we'll talk more about the enforcement piece in a moment. There's also our Vision Zero action plan, which is online. Hopefully folks have had a chance to see that. We have 6 E's that really define our plan, but the big 3 of those 6 are education, engineering, and enforcement. And I think especially over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, you've seen a very strong push from our public relations department, thank you, Renee, pushing out a strong education about the do's and don'ts of driving safely, bicycling safely, and moving about town safely. There's the engineering piece, which has been significant over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, as we've seen a number of quick build projects that are popping up virtually all through town. So you've seen a lot of work on Sedgwick, you'll see more work in the north end, work in Elmwood, includes raised crosswalks, curb extensions, pedestrian islands. We'll be looking at neighborhood traffic circles and roundabouts, speed humps. So that work is continuing as we move through this summer, and that work will continue as we move through the next couple of summers as well, till we get to a point where it is where we achieve Vision Zero, and we can move, as I said, through our town from one side to another safely, where we can change the culture of driving in our community. What started all of this, as we know, was tragedy. Back in 22, we had 6 individuals die tragically on our streets. 3 of those were pedestrians. 2024, we had 3 pedestrians who died on our streets. This year, within a week of each other, back in early June, we had 2 more people tragically die on our streets. one is too many. We need to get to zero, and we are doing that through our Vision Zero action plan. And a big part of what we're going to be talking about tonight is that enforcement piece. So our police department, who I said it was in the back of the room, has been doing an outstanding job of enforcement town-wide. And the speed camera and the red light camera program, which we'll talk about a little bit tonight as well, is additional enforcement that's going to allow us to really kind of start to change. We're not out there looking to just violate, obviously catch speeders. We want to change the culture. We want people to know when they're in West Hartford, our residents certainly driving through town, people coming to visit West Hartford, we're going to have speed enforcement cameras. You need to be careful when you're driving through town. We need to be looking out for one another, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish. Our speed camera program won't replace our police department enforcement efforts at all. As our police chief likes to say, it's a force multiplier. So the speed enforcement camera program and the red light camera program, which will be coming later as well, that is going to allow us to expand our efforts through the use of technology. So you'll still see our traffic division out there enforcing, but we'll have, as we get through the program tonight, you'll hear about 15 cameras that we'll be allowed to set up in town. This will allow us to deploy our police department beyond the spots covered by our cameras. So as you can see, high vehicle speeds can create dangerous conditions for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers, leading to serious and fatal injuries. We've all known that. And we've embraced, as I discussed, the principle that traffic deaths and serious injuries are unacceptable and preventable. Every accident, every death that I just discussed earlier was preventable. And a speed camera program supports our Vision Zero effort, our Vision Zero plan. So automated traffic enforcement safety devices are proven tools that encourage safe driver behavior. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, we can expect to see up to a 40% reduction in fatal and serious injury crashes. And of course, over time, see a significant decrease in excessive speeding. Again, starting to change that culture of how we move through our community. So tonight's agenda, we're going to talk in a moment about NEPA and Title VI. I'll speak a little bit more and give you a little bit of a program overview about how we've kind of essentially got to where we are tonight. At that point, we will have our consultants from VHB and VN join us and talk a little bit about the methodology, some of the information that's going into initial locations, and then we're going to talk about next steps, and then we'll finish that up with a question and answer portion of the show. So as I said, we have lots of staff here tonight, so you will have the opportunity to speak either publicly or privately with any of our police officers, staff, all here to answer your questions. And we are going to use this information to develop our final plan, which we'll get to in a little bit more detail later on. But this plan will be presented back to the public in September at our second public information meeting. And then in the middle of September, we will bring it to a town council standing committee, which is our Community Planning and Economic Development Committee. And then at the end of September, we would bring that final plan to the town council for final approval and adoption. At that point, we'll be able to submit that plan to the state and to the Federal Highway Administration. So I do have to read through this, so bear with me for just one moment. So we have the notice to the public, your rights under Title VI. In accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and the American with Disabilities Act, the town of West Hartford ensures that no person is excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or subject to discrimination under any program or activity. And then we have our civil rights information available on the website. So the National Environment Policy Act Review and Environmental Considerations. This project is expected to qualify for category categorical exclusion under NEPA, meaning no significant environmental impacts are anticipated. Public feedback will help identify any additional concerns for evaluation. And then comments received during and after this meeting will be documented and reviewed as part of the final decision-making process going into our final plan. So, and you can email feedback as well to visionzero@westhartfordct.gov. So, so a bit on kind of what is automated traffic enforcement safety device, how we got to where we are today. So House Bill 5917, Connecticut House Bill 5917 was signed into law back in June of 23 and authorized the use of both speed and red light cameras. According to the statute, cameras can only be installed in 4 types of locations. Traffic signals, of course, for red light running. School zones for speeding. Right now we have 2 school zones in the town of West Hartford. And through our Vision Zero action plan, we'll be implementing more school zones. We have 0 pedestrian safety zones for speeding, and I'm not sure there's actually any documented pedestrian safety zones in the state. And then, of course, we have other locations for speeding, which is really the focus of where our plan will head, and that's what we want to hear from you this evening. We have maps in the back of the room. After we're done, if you have a chance, you can go check out some of the streets and help us identify streets where you feel a camera would be effective. Devices, an ATESD is a device that records violations of speeding or running red lights. That's it. That's all that camera will record, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So images capture license plate, date, time, and location of violations. So it does not take a picture of who's driving, it takes a picture of your license plate and then records it for processing. So West Hartford, through our work with our Vision Zero action plan, that plan was very useful to us and effective and allowing us to apply for 2 Safe Streets for All grants, which are 2 federal grants. So we received one that will allow us to do what we're talking about right now, and that's a speed enforcement management program. That will be a pilot program for approximately 15 locations. So the pilot program will allow us to implement 15 cameras throughout town, and that is, of course, is the topic of what we're talking about tonight. We also applied for and received a second Safe Streets for All grant, and that will support an 18-month pilot program for automated red light enforcement. So we will be holding a similar public information meeting in 2026 as we're moving through the process of rolling out our red light camera program. That grant, the second grant, is still pending final agreement. And as I said, there'll be more information coming out about that plan as we move into next year. But a lot of the information that we are doing up front with the speed enforcement camera program will allow us to streamline our efforts with the red light enforcement program. So we're hopeful to move quicker through that process than the red light camera program. So I'll step back for a moment. So talked about the town council adopting the Vision Zero action plan back in '24. We also held a public hearing on April 8th, and at that meeting, following that public hearing, the town council voted to adopt our ordinance, which allows the town to implement a speed enforcement and red light camera program. So as I mentioned, there will be a town council meeting in September of '25 we will present the final plan to our town council, and they will vote on that plan in the September 25 meeting. Once we receive approval from the town council, we would then send our plan, our final plan, off to the Connecticut Department of Transportation for their approval. Once we receive approval from the DOT, then we will send our grant off to the Federal Highway Administration for their approval. So because we have a federal grant, we have 2 levels of approval that we need to go through: state DOT and Federal Highway Administration. So we'll hear later from our consultants. There are a number of plans that are out there and active right now in the state. They were able to move a little bit quicker through the approval process because they only needed to go to the state DOT for approval. So, as I said, the council approved the ordinance on April 8th, consistent with requirements of the state law. And in that ordinance, we discussed the violation process. So, anyone exceeding the posted speed limit by 10 miles an hour or more would be subject to a violation. At some point when we talked about the red light camera program, failure to stop at a red light would result in the issue of a violation. Violations are municipal citations issued to the owner of a motor vehicle, not to the driver. So similar to a parking violation in town, this is how this program will work. So if your son or daughter, or my son or daughter, are driving my car and they speed, and hopefully they won't, but they would be, I would be subject to the violation, not the person driving the car. So in terms of a review process, a West Hartford Police Department sworn officer or authorized town employee will review and approve recorded images before issuing citations. It will be $50 for the first violation, $75 for each subsequent violation within 1 year. A 30-day warning period will be in place before fines are issued for each camera location. So when we roll this program out, folks will have 30 days before fines will be issued. And there will be an online payment option available with processing fee not to exceed $15. And of course, vehicle owners will have the right to appeal the fine within 10 days. As required by state law, funds collected from fines will be invested directly back into West Hartford by supporting transportation safety and mobility improvements, infrastructure enhancements, and costs associated with automated enforcement programs. So the money that we collect through this program, through these violations, will go directly back into our infrastructure efforts that we are undergoing right now. So everything we've been working on over the last several months, last year, and as we head into the next couple of years, the revenue generated from these violations will go directly back into keeping our streets safe. Vendor fees for installation, operation, or maintenance of the devices cannot be contingent on the number of citations issued or fines paid. So this isn't some kind of incentive for a vendor that we may choose to issue more tickets. This is, if you're speeding, we're going to issue a violation, and we will use that revenue, as I said, to implement more changes. You know, our hope is, that anyone who's paying attention to the news right now, you can see in towns where they've rolled this program out over the last couple of months, you've seen some of the fine numbers that are being issued in some of these communities. It's excessive. And certainly, I would expect we may see that here in town as well. But over time, as I said, we're hoping to change the culture. And if someday we're not issuing any violation because everyone's obeying the speed limit in town, that would be our ultimate goal, of course. So no, this is important, no personal identifiable information shall be disclosed by the town except where disclosure is made in connection with the charging, collection, and enforcement of the fines. No personally identifiable information shall be stored or retained by the town or camera vendor unless the information is necessary for the charging, collection, and enforcement of all fines. And we or the vendor will destroy any retained portion of personally identifiable information not later than 1 year after the date of such person's most recent violation. Again, this isn't an opportunity for us to use these cameras for any other reason other than to keep our streets safe have people obey our speed limits and not run red lights in town. That is it. So state law and Safe Streets for All agreement both require reporting to measure effectiveness of our devices, so we will have to report out to the state and the Federal Highway Administration number of violations, crash data at each of our sites, the number of hearings requested and results of those hearings, amount of revenue that we receive from the fines and fees, and percentage of fines collected from residents and percentage of fines collected from non-residents. And then, of course, the cost to the town to use these devices. And list of engineering educational measures undertaken by municipality to improve safety. And as I said, that's ongoing right now and will continue as we move forward. So state law requires signs at each of our posted locations. So when you see a camera, you'll also see a sign that lets folks know that there's a camera there. We, believe it or not, are required to notify Google Maps, Waze, and Apple Maps, all online navigation applications of the location of our cameras. So that is something that's required by the statute. And we are, as I said earlier, we are required to have an awareness campaign 30 days, well, I didn't mention this part. So 30 days prior to the operation of the camera program, we will have a more educational campaign. We'll be keeping people up to date on as we're moving through this process anyways, but a more stepped up education campaign 30 days prior to the operation of the cameras. So everyone's going to know that these cameras are coming. So it is this important. So through the pilot programs, because we received a grant, it's a pilot program. So we can implement this program for 18 months, and then we would need to. We can extend it. So within the state program, there's a 3-year. So every 3 years, the town needs to get approval from the state for this program. We have an 18-month pilot program, obviously a little short of that 3 years, but we can extend, we'll be able to extend with our vendor to go beyond that 18-month program to up to 3 years. Our expectation will be that this will be effective, that we would get approval to continue this pilot, to continue the program beyond the pilot, and it would be our expectation that 3 years from now, that we would be working with our town council to continue this program beyond that 3-year initial approval from the state. So at this point, I'm going to introduce you to our consulting team, who will go into a little bit more detail about locations of cameras, methodology, next steps, etc. So we have Kevin Ortiz, we have Joe Balskis from VHB, and Kevin from VN Engineers. And then, as I said, at the end, we will have the question and answer, and we have a number of staff here available to take your questions, both from the podium as well as off to the side as well. So thank you very much, and I will turn things over. Is it Kevin first, or Joe, or Kev? There you go. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So the town of West Hartford brought on our team to meet this objective of reducing speeds and speed-related crashes. The purpose of the study is to identify these locations. We started doing so in May of this year. Part of that study is to conduct a screening analysis. We'll speak a bit about that later on. To conduct 2 public information meetings, this being the first, and then we'll talk a little bit about when the next one is coming up. After those meetings, we'll finalize the locations. Ultimately, those locations will develop this ATESD plan. That plan has to be submitted to OSTA and NEPA for review and approval. As Rick mentioned, there's other municipalities in Connecticut that have gone through with this plan. The list above, there's 5 that have been approved. 5 are still under review currently. Once this process is over, West Hartford will be added to that list. So what we have done so far is we've submitted a public information plan that pretty much outlines how we're going to keep the public engaged and be transparent throughout this entire process. The initial location screening is also completed. Joe will go more in depth in that. Last week we met with the Vision Zero committee to discuss this presentation in depth. And we're here today for the first public information meeting to solicit as much public feedback as possible. Still ongoing work is the initial location selection. We still have to conduct additional screening and take your input into consideration. So now I'll pass it on to Joe to go over the methodology of how he selected these initial locations.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, so again, Joe Balskis of VHB. I'm going to run through the data-intensive process that we're following to figure out where these speed cameras will go. That's what we're engaged by the town to do, is look at all the data, compile the data, do a lot of data collection we've done so far, compile the data, the town data, the DOT data, and look at a process to evaluate that data to give us locations for the speed cameras. And we've developed a screening methodology similar to a screening process that we follow with the Capital Region Council of Governments and State DOT. We completed a screening study for roundabouts across the state of Connecticut, and it's a similar screening process we followed here with the methodology, looking at various factors. Obviously speed related crashes is the front and center we're looking at. Where are the speed related crashes? What are the traffic volumes? Where are the school zones? Where are the pedestrian areas? All those factors play into a screening process. And it gets a little complicated in terms of data. This is an example of the data, one of the databases we're using to compile for all segments across the town for these locations in the methodology. So we developed what's called a geographic information system application. It's a technology application that we use that allows us to use all the town data within the town of West Hartford, where we look at the mapping, look at the data associated with that. Using that GS application, we can look at every street and road segment within the town. Every segment, we apply that to our screening process, and that each segment is looked at in terms of all the data that we have. And in that screening process, we have numerous factors that we are considering. Obviously, first and foremost, are speeding-related crashes. So now we got all crashes, just crashes involving speeding. That's the first and foremost thing we're looking at. Obviously, the traffic volumes, that's part of it. The speeds of the vehicles in those crashes. VRUs, vulnerable road users, right? Non-vehicle users of the roadway. And we map all those locations. And this is an example of some of the data we've mapped showing the various factors involved, the speed crashes, the volumes, the speeds, on our GIS mapping is what we're using. Can I finish? Can I finish the presentation first? No, can I finish the presentation first? Oh, I'm sorry. Vulnerable road users. We call it people who are not in vehicles. Pedestrians, bicyclists, e-bikes, all that. Those are what we call vulnerable road users. Sorry about that. You're welcome. So our screening process, again, we start with just the crashes involving speeding vehicles. That's the first and foremost. We also look at the crashes themselves, and you see the Yukon here. So University of Connecticut with Connecticut DOT have developed a crash repository. All the crash reports now are all done digitally by police officers, and it's a very accessible database. You can actually access it yourself, and we use that data, we bring that into our geographic information location map, and it allows us to map all these locations in the town of West Hartford. We then, as I mentioned before, the vulnerable road users, we then map those locations. Crossing guards, where do we have crossing guards across the town of West Hartford? Where do we have school zones? Where do we have slow zones? Where do we have pedestrian zones? Parks. Parks are our pedestrian generators. Open space as well. So we map all that data, allows us to see where all this is happening, and how does that overlay with in terms of our speed-related crashes and our volumes and so on. So this is all done in a geographic information system database that compiles all this. And then we screen that in a process. So this map shows the vulnerable road users that I mentioned here, all these here. And then we also overlay that with the speeding crashes to see, are the speeding crashes in those same areas? Are we seeing those speeding crashes happening at crossing guards? Are they happening in slow zones? Are they happening in school zones? So we can connect the dots, if you will. So this area here has a school zone, and it has speeding crashes, and it has speeding vehicles. That's how we connect the dots in terms of our mapping data. And we screen for that. So those are the ones that we want to look at. That's your focus. What do you want for the speed camera? Speed camera on a higher volume road, higher speeds, speed-related crashes, pedestrians are present, crossing guards are present. That's an ideal location to have a speed camera. We also look at the Vision Zero focus areas I was talking about earlier. The towns developed this map. We overlay that as well with our data. So it's very data intensive. This part of the process is data intensive, meaning we're not applying a subjective view of it. It's all based on what the data has given us that we've compiled. So what does that mean? We run through the screening process. We run it through our probably 3/4 way of our screening process, and from that we found about 36 roadways that look appropriate for a speed camera. It doesn't say exact location yet. It just says roadway segments that are potential speed camera locations. We have further screening underway to look at those. We will then select a top 40 locations, if you will. Ultimately, 15 will be selected in the end. But this is a map, and I'll show you the streets themselves. This is a map in yellow. You can see this is the town map. These yellow segments are what the segments, the screening methodology is telling us are the initial locations we need to look at a little further. What does that mean? That means this. So this is a list of town roadways. Now, this does not mean the entire roadway. This means that this roadway may have a camera suggested for it. Doesn't say where on the town roadway. Obviously, Mountain Road's up there. Obviously, New Park Avenue's up there. Trapper Drive. We're not saying where right now. We're not there yet. It's just saying these are 36 roadways that we've seen so far with the screening process are potential candidates for speed enforcement cameras. Okay, let's guys take that in a little bit. So it's 36. A lot of these probably sound familiar. Why is it probably major arterials in town, higher speed roadways in town, obviously some 4-lane roadways there. Some of these may not be, they sound, well, wait a minute, but there could be some crashes there, a lot of speed-related crashes on a road. That's why it's up there. Maybe a road segment that's near a park, near a school zone. That's why it's up there, okay? But again, this is the data screening analysis we've done. This is the initial results. The next steps on this process is listen to you, but we have additional screening, okay? So data comes out, tells us the results from screening, and then we look at a little bit more at the focus areas I mentioned, get into more of the speeding violation data that we have, all right? Does this road have speeding violations, a high percentage of speeding violations versus other roads in town? We're going to do desktop reviews. Okay, we're going to use our computers and use Google Street View and Google Maps and look at from a desktop standpoint, is this roadway segment appropriate for it? So then we start entering the subjective part of this. The data tells us this, and then we'll look at the subjective nature of it. Same thing we did with the Capital Region Council of Government study as well as the DOT study statewide for roundabouts. We then check the qualified census tract. Okay, make sure you have too many locations and areas that, that the requirements you are supposed to look at and not have them concentrated. And also public input. Okay, this is number 1 hearing, information meeting. The number 2 one is in September. So this is what we haven't done yet. Okay, done the initial data analysis, the screening, have initial results if you've seen. This will be our next steps. And then we'll develop the initial list of locations for speed cameras. The schedule itself, it was talked about. This kind of outlines for you the schedule, the ATSD plan, the public meeting number 2, at Sedgwick Middle School, okay? This one's here, but September 3rd at Sedgwick Middle School in September. We're following, obviously, NEPA. These are all steps outlined here in the process. Ultimately, the process is to get to approval by end of the year. All approvals, end of the year. Okay? There's various steps there, as you see there, council meetings, exclusions, OSTA approval, and then end of the year, get to an approval. So also to go, and then by midsummer, I think I say it next slide, right? By midsummer, of next year, this time next year, have them installed. So starting speed cameras this time next year for the 18-month trial that has been talked about, okay? And I think that's the end of my presentation. You want to take over, Q&A? Thank you.
All right, so now we'll start the Q&A process of this meeting. If you have any questions or comments after the meeting, feel free to email vision0@westhartfordct.gov. If you want more information on the program, visit the URL above or scan the QR code. So the comments, when you signed in, you provided, if you wanted to provide a comment, we will read your name in order. Please try to keep it within 3 minutes so everybody gets a chance to speak. And just a reminder that all your questions, comments will be recorded and posted online. So if William D. would come up to the podium to provide comment. William D. No. Tracy B. Tracy B. Yeah. Can you come up to the podium? Sorry.
Hello, my name is Tracy Bissell. I live on Vera Street, so you know my neighborhood. My question, and this came from a background of citation outside of Connecticut, and I just wanted to make sure that the citations would go to the actual physical person who owned the car and not to their lien holder or leaseholder, so that people don't get cited and don't know about it. That was my question.
Could that be William O instead of William D?
Yes, sorry. Do we want to give an answer to that? Or?
We can get back to you on that one. So the leaseholder of the car instead, so I know the tickets are issued to the owner of the vehicle, but obviously a complicating factor is the lease. So we can take a look at that and reply and answer back. Thank you.
Yeah, if you can provide your comment. We can hand you a mic.
So they can get it on TV. Yeah.
Hypothetically, if I own a vehicle and I have a friend of mine driving it and he runs a red light and I get the ticket because it's my vehicle, now my insurance goes up. Well, this is how I'm just assuming the situation. Oh, okay. Then I'm just wondering, I don't want to be,
So the ticket will be issued to the owner of the vehicle and not the driver of the vehicle, but it is, it's essentially a parking violation, for lack of a better word, which police department would have a more official term, but it's issued to the owner of the vehicle. It's not shared with DMV and it's not shared with insurance companies.
Good evening. My name is William O'Connor. I live on Flag Road, and I was pleased to see that both Flag Road and North Quaker Lane are highlighted as routes that are potential to have these lights and cameras. West Hartford is a fast-moving community, and people drive a lot of times over the speed limit. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to put in my 2 cents.
Thank you. Next is Ed P. Ed?
Good evening. My name is Ed Pollack. I'm the chair of the West Hartford Pedestrian and Bicycle Commission, and I support this program 100%. I'd like to make a pitch, because we've got an audience, and this is the opportunity for education, to promote another program, education program, which is the Safe Driver Pledge. Raise your hand if you've signed the Safe Driver Pledge yet. Quite a few. How many of you have ever heard of the Safe Driver Pledge? Anybody? Well, for those of you who have not or would consider, in addition to, we want people to drive the speed limit in town, not just so they can avoid a ticket, but to show that they care for their community. Because when you speed, you put everybody on the road at risk. When you sign the Safe Driver Pledge and you pop that little magnetic decal on the back of your car, you're telling everybody in your community that you care. You will drive the speed limit. You won't run red lights and so on. There are 6 very simple safe driver habits that you pledge to your community. And when you do that, you're pledging that you care about everybody in the community who's sharing the road with you. So if you haven't already signed the pledge, I urge you, very simple QR code, you can sign it electronically. You pick up the magnetic decal here or at lobby of town hall or the libraries, put it in the back of your car, tell your community that you care. And you're driving the speed limit, not just because the cameras are looking, but because you care about your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Next up is Tom C. Tom C.
Thanks. My name is Tom Carson. Live on Ridgewood Road, and I echo one of the comments. I'm glad to see Ridgewood on the list. I've lived there for about 38 years, and the speed each year gets faster and faster. Just before I came to the meeting tonight, I just stood outside the light between Ridgewood and Sedgwick. I counted approximately 25 cars going through it, of which 5 went through the red light. And this is at 5:45 in the afternoon. So it's a real issue. A couple of questions. The discussion is about breaking the speed limit. And I'm wondering about how the speed limit is set. Some of the roads are at 25 miles an hour, some are at 30 miles an hour. And I think that makes a difference. I believe Ridgewood is 30 miles an hour. There are sections of Ridgewood that could clearly have a lower speed limit. So I would advocate for some consideration for the speed limit. When the road was recently repaved about 4 years ago, I advocated for a reduction at the limit at that time, and I was told that it's considered a public safety road for fire and police, and that's the reason they couldn't do it. But I would still advocate for a lower speed limit if possible. The other question I had for the gentleman from the engineering firm, among the items that you've analyzed, a great deal of data, was any of the data considering the number of children who live on a street? Just in my 3 or 4 houses near me, there are 8 children under the age of 8 who are playing on the sidewalks every day. So I would hope that would be a consideration as far as the number of children within a location. And lastly, I want to thank the town and everyone that's looking into this, and it's a very important issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And I know we didn't have specific data related to number of children in each home, but we have taken a close look at our school zones, which obviously we would usually have more children living in closer to those school zone areas. Anything you'd add to that, Joe?
Yeah, I guess I would just say that we don't have that data yet, but if that's a concern, or we can add it. If the data is available, even sidewalk, we don't have data showing where the sidewalk is not sidewalk. So the beauty of the system is that you can add that. So if it's really available and it's a concern that we look at children that reside in an area, that can be one of the things we can look at. We don't have it now, but again, if that's a concern and it's available, that's the key thing. The data is available in some way that we can put in here, then we can look at that. Good question.
And as part of this process, we're also evaluating our current speed limits on all of our roads. So for the most part, our neighborhood streets are 25 mile an hour, and our arterials are 30, although we do have some at 35 as well. So, but that's part of this study as well.
Thank you. Next is Terry G. Terry G.
Good evening. My name is Terry Glenn, and I live off Fern Street. And I've lived there for 26 years, and the park is right there, Fernridge Park. Very concerning. When you come down Main Street, you pick up speed, and years ago, there used to be a wonderful flashing light right as you cross over to the park. That's been gone for many years. We also have the bridge issue there, which is really disconcerting. You're practically up on the sidewalk. I did speak to somebody at Public Works one day just to have, over the winter, you'd have the ice, underneath the ice, there was all sorts of leaves, never taken care of. I was told it was the residents' responsibility, and they were going to send letters out. And I said, really? And about a half hour later, I got a phone call, and they said, I apologize, it's our responsibility. I said, well, I hope you don't send those letters out. I can't imagine people, shoveling. Anyway, it hasn't been cleared since then. It's a mess. You have a lot of children there. I'm a grandmother now, so if I go over there, you can actually put 3 feet and you're in the road. That's concerning, and of course, the speed. Now, we have the police department here is wonderful. I would like to see more presence there, especially by the parks. And when you come down the hill, you accelerate. It's very difficult to brake the whole way, some kind of light, etc. I came here for a different reason, but it's really for your next segment. I was one of the people who received a letter from a different state, my license plate, etc. But I'd like to really, it wasn't me. I'd like to see the back end of what the camera looks like. I have a picture of the one I got. You cannot make it out. It's blurry. I had to spend quite a bit of time proving that it wasn't me. That's what I'm concerned of. If I'm going down the street and maybe there's a car in front of me, maybe both cars get in that picture somehow, how do you prove it wasn't me speeding? That's another concern. Thank you.
Thank you. And Fern, specifically that part of Fern is part of our study. Further back on Fern, we did implement over by Morley School a raised crosswalk there. So we are, but to your point, looking at other, including speed enforcement on that portion of Fern. And we will, once our plan's approved, we will be going out to bid to hire a vendor, camera vendor, and certainly some of the concerns you brought up, we can bring that up with them during the RFP process and the initial awarding of the contract and ensure that we don't run into those types of issues that you've seen from another state. So, thank you.
Great. Next is Wayne L. Wayne L.
Let me stand behind the podium so you won't see my knees knocking. My name is Wayne Leghorn. I've lived in West Hartford for about 50 years. The past 15 years I've lived on Ravenwood Road, and Ravenwood Road lets out onto either Farmington Avenue or Mountain Road. Mountain Road, as many of you know, runs from Still Road, the Bloomfield border, all the way all through Farmington Avenue, so practically the whole city. When I'm the only car on the road, 30 miles an hour is safe. That's the posted speed limit for all of Mountain Road. When more than one car is on the road, especially during the rush hour, I'm almost always tailgated immediately by angry people going to or from work. I have used to in the past try to signal them with a one-fingered salute to try to get them to slow down and back off. That doesn't work anymore. I made some notes, but they melted. Hold on. There they are. So I'm pleased that you see Mountain Road up on the left side of that screen as one of the targeted possible areas. In my opinion, you could put a speed camera every 100 yards and you would be hard-pressed to find someone going 30 miles an hour unless that's me. And I use that road practically every day. I do notice that there are some signs there that warn the motorists that you've got to give 3 feet to the bicyclists. When I see a bicyclist on parts of Mountain Road, I have to white knuckle my way and decide, am I going to slow down and not hit the bicyclist or the kid or the dog when they hit one of the ruts that are out there now built into the road, or am I going to get tailgated? And I just found out earlier that there is no law against tailgating anymore unless the person hits you, and then you can get a ticket for following too closely or something like that. So I know that this is currently restricted to just speeders and red lighters, but if possible, you might want to consider those cameras allowing you to get the person nailed for speeding and for tailgating. I think that's about it. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm 100% in favor of this. And the only way they're going to stop, they don't stop, they don't take signals, peace signs, or anything else. Hit them in the wallet, hit them hard. Second and third time, double, triple it. And a lot of these, someone mentioned about concern for the community. A lot of the people on that road are not from the community. They're flying in from wherever to go to a job, and they're flying out to a job. They really have no thought, consideration about the people who happen to be fortunate enough or misfortunate enough to live next to the Mountain Road Speedway. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and couldn't agree more. And as I mentioned at the opening, ideally, we will be slowly, or quicker than slower, I hope, changing the culture within our community. A certain chairperson of the Pedestrian and Bike Commission challenged our advisory committee. We've been working together now for a couple of years to actually drive the speed limit. So when you're on Mountain Road, drive 30 and see what happens, and your point is well taken. But honestly, when you drive 30, it slows everything down. It's a game changer. Driving the speed limit changes the safety of our community. That's where we need to get to. Won't be easy, but that's our goal. Thank you for your comments.
All right, next is George G. George G.
Hi. I'll move out here where I can see people. I'm George Gould. I live on Tunxus Road. There's a couple of things that I would like to know more about, which is the first thing is the appeal process that people have in relationship to if they are, accused of speeding or whatever. I want to make sure that the process is one that is fair and that it's impartial. I think that that's important. The second thing is, since I live on Tunxus, there is a couple of other things. The first street, as you come off of Ridgewood, is Cornell. And that street is it's a cut through. People who miss the red, get the red light. Let me put this in another hand. I'll probably, anyway, but it's a cut through where people come off of Ridgewood, particularly if they miss the light turns red, and then they cut through Cornell, And the town or the town and the state have never had, a thing that comes across the entrance that you come out of or the exit that you come out of the street. They've never had so that when somebody cuts through there, they usually cut off the corner. And many times I've seen, because I live across the street from Cornell, I've seen cars that come. So I don't know. Cornell is not mentioned at all. I'm hoping that it's part of the stuff that the town does in relationship to that area of Tungus and Ridgewood. I think one of the things that I'd just like to mention is that for the last 3 years, the people on Tungus Road from Ridgewood to Sedgwick have put up signs. Every single person on our street has done that for 3 years, off and on, trying to slow down people. And that part of it has not worked because people go through there at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. And I just had an interesting statistic that maybe Rick can tell you that he told me when I came in. I don't know if you want to tell people that or not, but there's an extremely large number of people that the town has ticketed on that street, and they've done a nice job too. And I just want you to know that group is supporting this effort, but we don't think that we're finished yet, and Rick has told us that we're not. So thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George.
Thank you, George. And the police department had shared it. We had 180 stops on Tungus. I'm one of George's neighbors, so that's my neighborhood as well. But I think all of us could probably talk about experiences similar that we're seeing around town, and that's ultimately what we're trying to change. So thank you for your comments.
Great. Next is Justin H.
3 minutes, let's see. I could ramble forever. I'm a West Hartford resident my whole life. I grew up Fernan, North Maine, and I bought a house over on Flatbush and Oakwood. And I bring that up because they're main intersections. And like George mentioned, cut-throughs. You know, people are always trying to cut through to avoid the light. And where I'm going with this is, once you implement these speed and red light, what is going to be the nature of the drivers? Are they going to, find different routes? Because the whole idea is to get across town, and the time it takes to get across town now takes a lot longer. And as the town continues to grow with more cars, it's going to, the same thing's going to happen. Now you put in speed bumps. I've seen those recently. And chicanes on Arnoldale, that was on one of your slides. The chicanes, they're great. I've built one before, but it aggravates drivers, and they try to go through it as fast as they can. And the speed bumps, I'm worried about the winter when the plow season comes. So I'm wondering who's going to pay for, to fix those. But I applaud this program for the speed cameras and especially the red light cameras. I think it's the only thing that's going to work. We're post-pandemic, driving skills are terrible. And I think that's all. Yeah, I'd like to see a speed hump on 44. 18,000 vehicles, I just heard this yesterday, 18,000 vehicles go over Avon Mountain every day. And there's a house at the end of the Governor's Street that has speed humps. They have to rebuild that brownstone wall God knows how many times. And, there's people that drive highway speeds on 44. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks for your comments. So our Public Works Department, we've implemented, I don't know, 15 now speed humps and raised crosswalks. We have exponentially more coming. Our Public Works Department is fully supportive of what we're doing to keep our town safe. So they know where they are, and we may run into issues here and there during the winter, but we have a great crew, and they'll do their best to get over them safely and not destroy them without having to do too much work every spring. But fully on board with what we're trying to do. As I mentioned before, the camera system is, the technology. Where the technology is, we will be in the other places. So if we start to see what you just mentioned in terms of people avoiding the cameras and trying to go through other parts of town, we will be there with our traffic department and continue that, as I said, the force multiplier of keeping our speeds down town-wide. So we do have a meeting with the state tomorrow morning, actually, on Albany Avenue. So we are continuing. It's a state road. We did a road safety audit, as many folks know, and we are going to be working with the state to implement changes on that road that will hopefully dramatically change what we all experience whenever we get on that, essentially I-84 within West Hartford on Neighborhood Street. So thank you.
Great. Next person is Mark O.
Thank you. My name is Marco Caneri. I live on Nesbitt Avenue. I think this program is beneficial, and I think the police force is excellent, so I have no complaints there. My concerns are a couple of them. Initially with the camera and whatnot, and how it picks up people stopping or running red lights, if they are taking a right turn on red, hypothetically, does a complete stop need to be made, which should be anyways, if there's a moderate stop and then they make the right turn, will they be ticketed under this pretense, and do they have any leg of defense against it? I don't know. Obviously they didn't stop, so that basically they ran the light, which is okay. That's the way it is, and that makes sense. Speeding, anything over 10 miles an hour gets a parking ticket fine. So if they're doing 50 miles an hour over the speed limit, it gets a parking ticket fine. Okay? That's actually beneficial to the speeder. But, okay, that's that. Not a big problem with the system that you're putting up here. A little bit of concern with how much of a percentage are the taxpayers putting up for this. As you said, there was a grant. Now, what percentage of it goes to the taxpayer, and what percent of it is coming out of the government, the federal government? That's a concern. These expenses are supposed to be supplemented by the fines that are taken in, which is not really a good plan, because it's like, gee, we hope we get a lot of speeders so we can pay for this. So I'm not too high on that method, but I'm just curious as to how much of a percentage the town, the taxpayer, you and I, will be forking out for this. Personally, I thought the police force did a pretty good job, but I don't know the stats. I don't know all the tickets and whatnot. And also, a quick question about I'm going to make an assumption on myself. The corners, you put these, I don't know, guard posts on the corners. Is that just so people don't cut the corner and hit a pedestrian? Okay. That's kind of what I thought it was. I was curious why they were all there, but that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to respond to that if I can remember all the points you made there. So yeah, the curb extensions provide that extra buffer for pedestrians. It shortens the distance between two corners. Pedestrian getting across also creates that extra buffer of safety. And visually, where you're seeing our curb extensions, our pedestrian islands around town, really as you're approaching these in a car, it really forces you to really focus, and our hope is to pump the brakes, take it a little bit slower, lot of activity going on here. So there's like a multi-pronged effect with those. So in terms of, so we do have 2 grants that are supplementing, completely covering the cost of the speed enforcement program and then ultimately the red light program as well. And so no taxpayer dollars are being expended at this point. And as I said, we expect to see significant revenue, at least initially, to cover those expenses. We will, you know, we will create a fund, a separate fund outside of our general fund where the revenue will go into, and then it will cover expenses of the program as well as, but most of it, I think, will end up going to infrastructure changes town-wide, which is a savings to our taxpayers. So we don't necessarily have to go to our taxpayers to implement all the changes that we need to continue to do what we've been doing over the last couple of months and as well as last year. So what was the other question, if there was one? Did I cover everything for you? All right, you can't, so Renee, actually, our public relations specialist, just sent out a communication not too long ago. You have to stop at a red light. There's no coasting through a red light. When you can take a right on red, you can't coast through it. So you will be ticketed for trying to coast through that red light. You have to stop completely at the red light. Thank you.
Great. Next is Henry Yu.
Thank you. What a privilege to be here today. I'd like to first of all give some statistics. You know, we all can Google. I just Googled and said, list me the number of cities, you know, that likes or that he has worked out for. You know, the traffic, red light traffic cameras, you know. And I saw that in my Google, which I have here, 44 cities in the United States have uninstalled their cameras. They used to have the cameras. They have uninstalled it because it doesn't work right for them. And at the bottom of it, I saw 8 states, from Maine to Mississippi to New Hampshire to New York, South Carolina, even the big old Texas, West Virginia and Wisconsin is banned. They banned it. In other words, they don't want it. These are some of the things I think West Hartford, which I love. I think it's a wonderful city. Every time we get the best cities in the United States, you see West Hartford appears there among the 10 cities, you know? I'm so proud of it. I sent it to my friends out of state. This is where I live. I said I have to say all this. I did a little research, which I would like, I don't know who can take this for the city council, for their review, for them, you know, I want it filed, if you don't mind, please. I don't want to take a lot of your time, but I have about 6 points with subsections in it. I also compared it with the city of Middletown, which you mentioned, you know, when you, for the city of Middletown, they have about almost 10,000 citations, 9,819 citations. And the revenue billed was $606,000. That's how much they billed. And guess how much they collected? $30,000. You see, I used to live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's where I came from. I lived in the South. I started my IT career in the South, in Atlanta, Georgia. I haven't gone to school in Alabama. So I started my IT career with IBM in Atlanta many years ago in the 90s. So I came over here by the way of the Hartford Insurance as a senior Oracle DBA and IT consultant. So I said that to say all this. When I was living in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, this is a personal experience. There's a popular road called College Drive that leads to LSU. And College Drive goes under the I-10, Interstate 10 that runs from Florida to California. There's a speed camera there, and that speed camera was notorious for false pickups, false positives, so to say. I had 3 experiences where I was given a ticket. This is my own personal experience. And of course, you want to go to court if you think you're right, to go contest the ticket. And all 3 times it was dismissed because of the fault in the camera. So I know we talked about data here a lot, being in IT, data is gold today. Everybody knows that. But not all the data are correct. And the camera we're talking about here, the efficiency of the camera depends on the calibration of the camera. Is it accurately calibrated? I'm sure the company that owns this camera can probably tell you more about the calibration. There are issues in the calibration. It's true, we do have problems with, speeds. Around Oakwood Avenue, and I have seen we have 2 leg bridges there. There are bumps. I've seen quite a few of them around the city lately. I saw it in the news about a month ago. In fact, from my Google News that I had about this meeting here. So I saw the leg bridges about a month ago. So there's quite a lot of them in the city. I want to ask the city manager, is that right? Yes. Did you all put into consideration, considering the amount of the leg bridges that you had recently, in the last 1 month, we have a lot of them. I think it would be nice, it will make more sense to put it into an equation, to put into calculations, the number of leg bridges we have and the effect on this camera. Because I saw listed on this camera is pedestrians, and school. Those 2 invariably will affect leg bridges. Sorry for taking your time, but I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Henry, and appreciate the information. We'll incorporate that into our progress as we move forward, specifically when we're hiring our camera vendor.
Great. Next is Jeff B.
Thanks. I'm Jeff Burson, on Wynwood Road, and Henry has some points that I was going to bring up too, so let me ask my questions. Basically, I had 3 questions for you, Rick, and for the engineers. You talked about a 30-day period after the camera gets put in where you don't actually feel fine. Will you actually send notices out to the people who did speed, so they know they actually were speeding even though they aren't going to get ticketed?
We will, yeah.
Okay, that's important. And as far as collecting the fees, does the town have the ability to collect those fees and go after the people who don't pay their fees? Because I know that DC has cameras and they're notorious for not being paid for their cameras, their speed tickets. So do we have any options? Does Connecticut have rules about that?
So I'm sure in DC's case, it's probably a case, a lot of the cases are probably out-of-staters and moving, visiting. I was
10 by 10, so
the victim of one myself, going to visit my daughter in DC, and I learned a valuable lesson, and it changed my behavior, but I did pay the fine. But yes, we will, part of the this process will involve, obviously, having the staff in place to process the fines, collect the fines, and ultimately, potentially chase the folks that don't pay.
And for those people who are out of state, do we have the ability to go after them to get the fines paid? Any leeway or?
Probably not a whole lot of, power to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Realistically. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, that's the
They do not.
point. It's like a parking ticket, so you don't get the ticket. Yeah. And the third thing was talking about, you're using a vendor for the cameras. They're responsible for all the maintenance and repairs for that, or are we going to be billed for any time it gets repaired?
They own the cameras. They will, we'll work through that during the bidding process, and ultimately the vendor that we choose and go with, but they would be we'd build that into the contract.
And so how do we deal with vandalism at that court? Maybe that's the police have to deal with that question.
We would, obviously a police department would be involved if there was vandalism, but certainly we would work with a vendor to replace the camera as well. Okay. Yeah.
But it would be at the town's cost?
We don't know that. I don't think it would be. Obviously, that's something we'll work through with the vendor. We're not there yet, but that'll happen. As soon as we get our plan approved, we will be bidding this out to multiple vendors. But the ones we've talked to initially, we've had conversations with a couple. They own and maintain the cameras. Okay. So I don't expect that to change.
Yeah. And you talked about neighborhood roundabouts.
Yes.
Can you go into more about what that's all about? Because my wife's French, so we're in Europe all the time. So roundabouts are the way to do all traffic control out there. So are we doing something like that here?
Yeah, we can talk afterwards about the roundabouts. Hang out for a couple moments and we'll, talk.
Okay.
Talk all night about them.
All right, thank you. Next is Robin S.
Hi, I'm Robin Smith. I live over by Norfolk School. So I have several points. My first is for the engineers. I would take a look at the data on streets that only have sidewalks on one side near schools. There are a lot of streets in town that only have sidewalks on one side, but particularly near the elementary schools, you have small children crossing wherever they can, and so I would look at that data a little more carefully. Two, Rick, you spoke really eloquently about changing the culture in the town. Do we have any data from the police department about speeding infractions in 2024, and what percentage of those were resident versus non-resident? And was there one group that was more predominant in the population for the 2024 data? Because that would be really helpful. I am concerned about collection, and I'm worried not just about out of state, but they live in Bloomfield, they're coming down to the mall, they're racing down Mountain Road, which Mountain Road is a free-for-all. I have been going significantly over 30 miles an hour on Mountain Road and still been flipped off and tailgated. So you can go pretty much 55 on Mountain, and if you don't, they pass you on the left, even though there is no passing zone on Mountain. So you drive between Albany and Fern on Mountain at your own risk, and you get an adrenaline rush if you do it on a bicycle. So that's not part of your plan either. There's no light there. I'm not sure if I want the free-for-all to end, though. Okay, and then the other question I have is, you said personally identifiable data will be collected for a year and then destroyed. During that one-year period that you're maintaining that personally identifiable data, is it subject to warrants if the police want to identify where someone was at a given time? It is not. So they can't use it as a crime-fighting tool to determine where a vehicle was and whether someone was in a vehicle at a given time?
Correct.
Oh, wait, he raised his hand. Correct?
Sorry, that's your question. Well, you've beaten it into my head.
So the last part of that, it's not used for a crime-fighting tool. It's just for the speeding enforcement, and then subsequent to that, I'll take the mic further. subsequent to that, it can be utilized when we have the red light cameras. But again, it will just be motor vehicle enforcement. And I'll wait until the end, but I took several notes. I can also provide answers to several questions that were brought up earlier, but I'll wait till the end.
Great, thank you. Next is Louis V.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Louis Velasquez. I live on Walker Road. Everybody kind of stole my questions for the most part, but just a couple of questions is, for the violation, is it one specific camera if you get caught on that camera, or is it going to be town-wide if I speed on this camera, but then 3 months later I speed on another camera? Is that a second offense, or is it just specifically in that area? That's one question. And my other question was, for the final decisions, has anything been taken into account as far as adjusting, traffic lights, adding speed bumps, and looking at other alternatives in certain areas of those 40 locations? Are those being considered? And then to piggyback off of some of the other people is the appeal process. You said it was something similar to a speeding ticket. Now, is the cost of that person handling that appeal incorporated into this, into the funding? Or is that something that, to the extent of, is our tax dollars going to pay that person to follow up on the appeal process? That's it for me.
So I'll start with your last question. So we would utilize revenue from the program to cover the cost of the appeal process. We do expect a number of appeals. And it's similar to appealing a parking violation right now. If you've ever received a parking ticket in town and appealed it, it's the same process. So it would add considerably more to the person who handles it right now. We do expect a lot more violations because of more than parking violations, obviously significantly more. But we do have the funding of the program to be able to offset the cost of personnel. What was your other question? I'm sorry. All of that we'll continue to work on. So all the infrastructure changes I hinted to in the opening will continue. You've seen a significant amount of change over the last 4 or 5 weeks. We need to continue that through the rest of the summer and then into the next few years. So that won't stop. So we will continue to implement engineering changes throughout town as much as possible.
Great, that was everybody that signed up. If you would like to leave a public comment, raise your hand. Did you? There you go.
Thanks. I support this program 100%. I lived in... I'm
sorry. The question was about the violations on cash. That's a second violation. Yeah.
Okay. So you get 2 violations. You could get 2 violations in one drive. You could get 2 violations, 2 tickets in one drive. Okay, good to know. I support this plan 100%. And I lived in Switzerland for 6 years where they use these cameras for speeding, for intersections, and they really work. So I'm glad you're doing it. I have a couple of questions. First of all, can we do something about, or have you thought about, are they legal, those plastic covers that people put over the license plates that make it so cameras can't see the numbers? Those drive me crazy because I don't have it, and I pay my tolls, and I pay, and these guys aren't. So I don't know if that's a state law, a federal law, I don't know. What's that? Awesome, thank you. The second one is, will there be like a flash or something that so you know, oh crap, I got caught? There will be?
Is there a flash?
Yeah.
Subject to vendor selection.
Okay, so Switzerland did that, and it was good, because then you knew, oh crap, I got caught. And you knew a ticket was coming. And actually, the tickets there took a lot longer, so 30 days is good, I think. And then the last comment or question is you said you got federal grants for this. Have you got the money in the bank now?
One of the grants we do, the second one we're still working.
Okay, good. Keep working hard, get in the money quick. That's it, thanks.
For obvious reasons. Yeah.
If anybody at this time has any additional comment or question, please.
Thanks, Jason Wang, live on 4 Mile Road. Very much in support of this program, very excited. We used to have them in Ohio, and one thing that I think it's a great program, but it can feel very unfair if the street is designed in a way that encourages speeding. You kind of hinted at it, that we're going to still be doing this around town, but specifically in the areas where you roll these out, could there be special attention paid to traffic calming so that it feels fair to drivers? So it's not a road that, it's designed for 50 and it's signed for 30, and then, people get mad because they're driving the way the road is designed. So will there be traffic calming focused in the areas where the cameras go so that it feels fair to drivers?
Thanks, Jason. Great question, and absolutely resounding yes on that one. So, for example, we talked a little bit about Albany Avenue. Right now, it's 4 lanes going east and west, and if you're driving between Prospect and Troutbrook, we see excessive speeds. Our police department spends a lot of time there. We, as I mentioned, have a meeting tomorrow morning with the state to look at traffic calming measures for Albany Avenue. So we need state approval to do that in that particular case, but those are the kinds of things that we'll continue to do. Mountain Road is our road, but we will continue to implement traffic calming measures townwide. So what you've been seeing over the last 4 or 5 weeks, really just the beginning. We will certainly be looking at all of our streets around town and doing the best we can to address traffic calming in those areas, specifically for roads that are unfortunately designed to go a little bit above the speed limit, or sometimes more than a little. Thanks.
Great. Is there any other questions?
Just one last one. Suppose after the cameras are implemented that there's an intersection and there's an accident. You're not going to be able to use any footage from that?
So the red light camera itself will be taking a picture of your license plate. So we do have, to Tom's point, we do have other cameras around town in certain intersections. These cameras would be in addition to whatever camera system we already have in place, as well as we will be expanding that camera system as well townwide. So the red light camera would take a picture of your license plate, not of the accident. I'm sorry. So if someone runs through a red light and delineators, so it depends. Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple hit already, right? People are getting used to them. We'll replace them when they're, if someone's purposely doing something like that, then obviously we work with our police department to address that, so. To date, we've just started this process, so we just started implementing these over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So, so if someone accidentally takes a corner and takes out a white post, we haven't been using any of our camera system to track that. No, not yet. So our engineers were out testing all of those where we've set them up so far and where we will continue to. So you can safely not only get a car around these corners, Our Public Works has come out with our plows as well, and we've navigated each of these locations with a plow, so we can get plows through there, we can get school buses through there, we can get cars through there. Really, it's slowing down as you're approaching one of these corners. Take your time, make your way through, get through safely, be aware of people around you. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Chief, yeah. He can correct all my mistakes. I'm sure there were a few.
I'm Peg Gould. I live on Texas Road. Nothing is going to be perfect, but I will say that if this mitigates and slows people down, then it's an effort worth trying. And I really think that the data approach is so well thought out that that is the way to try to select and look at. The one question I do have is that my daughter lives in Long Island, and their fees for going through a red light is $250, not $50. And so I'm not sure, but you want to revisit at some point what kind of mitigation a $50 fee for going through a red light really has in terms of the long-term effect. But this was extremely well done. Your presentation was very clear. Again, it's not perfect. I don't think a red light camera is going to solve all the problems, but if it's one step forward as one person, I appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, Peg. I appreciate that. And to your point, this isn't about enforcement. Enforcement's not going to solve all of our problems, but it's going to help. It's in addition to education and all of the engineering that we've talked about tonight as well. So a combination of all three, we will get there. Thanks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Vernon Riddick. I am the police chief here at the West Hartford Police Department. I do want to thank each and every one of you for taking time to come out this evening. What we just experienced and witnessed is an exercise in community policing. Each one of you bringing your matters and concerns to our attention so that we collectively can work on issues. I've heard several things from this evening, and you, Ms. Gold, was it at the end? Thank you so much. Your point is right on point. It really is. What we're doing here, each component of this is a section of the public safety pie. One section of the pie is the red light cameras. Another section of the pie is the speed cameras. Then you have the police department with enforcement. You have the town with the environmental design and the changes that you have there. You have the public education. All of these things collectively create the public safety pie, which we hope and we believe in the long term will lead us to zero fatalities, zero accidents, and everything else. So each one of you should give yourself a round of applause for you taking time to be part of that pie. So I appreciate each and every one of you for that. Thank you. I took some notes, and so I will try to address and answer each one of the questions that were brought up. My apologies if I miss a couple of things. First, I think someone talked about the obstructed view of the license plate. The new statute that came out, I don't have it right now, but there is a carve-out for that, for red light cameras, speed cameras, and LPRs. So if it is obstructed, we can charge for that. So that is in place, and that was actually thought about with the legislature. Residents versus non-residents. Last year, again, off the top of my head, so don't quote me exactly, we had approximately in 2024 about 7,500 or 7,600 motor vehicle stops, and approximately 65% of those were out-of-town residents and approximately 35 in town, so there is a significant disparity. But you have to take into account that West Hartford, people, we're a destination place. So a lot of people come in, even though our population might be 63 or 65,000, that swells. People come here, so keep that into consideration. Someone had mentioned, if the speeds are excessive, over 10, 20, 30, 40 miles over the posted speed limit, and what do we do in those situations? Again, great question. That will require additional information. We can determine whether or not that reaches a statute for reckless driving, and then we have to do additional investigative measures and apply for an arrest warrant and see if it gets signed for an arrest. But that would take work, so it's not prima facie. So a really good question regarding that. At the direction, someone mentioned, someone mentioned taking, red lights, right turns on red and everything else. At the direction of the town manager who's going to kill me because he doesn't want me to give him credit, we've actually, well, I don't have the data. We didn't anticipate that question for tonight, but about approximately a month or so ago, he directed me, we in turn passed it on to our traffic division to actually look at certain locations for red light violations, specifically red light violations. So kudos to him. I do have the locations, but I do not have the data right now. So there was Trout Brook at Asylum, Farmington at Ardmore, North Main at Sims, Farmington at Raymond, South Main and Park, Boulevard in Raymond, Trout Brook and Farmington, and then on Albany Ave at multiple locations. So we're looking into that. That's a big time consideration. Another question came about the registered owner or the leasing component of that. Well, leasing in an extent is very similar to the owner. When you have a car note, that car is actually owned by the bank. So there's really no difference when it comes to that. We don't do title searches, and usually with a lease, you'll have the lien holder, which would be the leasing company, and the registered vehicle owner. So we'll be going after the owner, the registered vehicle person, who that individual is. So that's how we would handle that. So thank you for that excellent question. I couldn't hear that earlier. I actually tried to send you a text, but it didn't work. You're a little busy. And also someone else had mentioned regarding the following, I guess, tailgating, and that the only time that charge can be implemented if it's an accident. That's not accurate. That's at the discretion of the police officer for following too close. My traffic people help me with the statute. I think it's 14240 or something. Am I right? Holy cow. I don't know last time I actually did that, but yeah, so we actually can implement that and utilize that if an officer does find somebody who's quote unquote tailgating, but you are accurate. It's not a tailgating charge. It's actually a following too close charge. So again, I tried to, if I missed any other questions here, I really tried to grab everything. I'm sorry, one additional thing. So we did add 2 additional traffic officers to our traffic unit, which brings us to 8 traffic officers, and there's a lot of training that goes involved for the reconstruction component of this, which is approximately 6 weeks of extensive training. So it's a high priority. It's been given from the town manager and the mayor to yours truly, who in turn put this out to the rest of our police department to make sure our streets are safe for everybody. Again, remember that pie. We all have a piece of the public safety pie. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes our program tonight. Thank you. I echo the chief's comments in terms of your participation, your questions. Outstanding questions. Anyone watching from home, hopefully a lot of our residents are watching from home. I guarantee a lot of these questions that they would have liked to have asked, you all asked tonight. So outstanding questions. We will incorporate your feedback into our plan, which ultimately, as I mentioned, will go to the town council later in September. But first, we'll be back to the public in September to present the draft of our plan. So anyone who wants to stick around to ask some questions, all of our staff will be available. So feel free to talk to any of us about any outstanding issues, questions, recommendations that you may have. Today's presentation is online, so visit our Vision Zero website. Outstanding information, not only about our speed enforcement program, but our Vision Zero action plan as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night.